Now it
All
says
right, we're off to a good start here. I'm
now it
Doug
says
Kyed.
we're 40 seconds deep now.
Welcome into Pat's Chat Podcast. We're just going to roll with this.
All right.
Michael F. Hurley here with me. We are going to talk about free agency. Mike, clearly I'm not in the best state of mind here. It's been a long week. How you doing?
It's good. I'm good. It's a cold world out there. LOL, as we learned today. Oh,
sure
jeez.
is.
Doug's sick again.
Yeah, I'm still sick. It sure is a cold world if you are Jakobi Meyers. Although the updated figures on JuJu Smith-Schuster's contract don't look quite as damning, maybe, for Jakobi Meyers, but a lot has transpired since we last podcasted. And the number one thing is that Jakobi Meyers left in free agency to the Las Vegas Raiders, signed for quite a bit less than what I think we both maybe expected him to sign for. I think that if we had been informed on Monday, Jakobi Meyers is going to sign a contract for $11 million a year, probably would have been a no-brainer for him to come back to New England. Instead, he goes to the Las Vegas Raiders, and kind of a weak contract overall, really kind of a one-year, $11 million deal that then goes year to year after that. So, and if things don't pan out for Jakobi Meyers in Las Vegas, he could be a free agent again next year.
Yeah, which would be a surprising turn for that contract. I would imagine he's going to play at least 2 years in Las Vegas, but you never know. What if they go 5-10 to start the year next year and McDaniels gets fired and things get moved out? Who knows? But yeah, I think he got paid sort of what he's worth, which is rare in free agency. Free agency is famously where dumb contracts get handed out to players that aren't quite worth it. So I was thinking he was going to get something like 4 for 60 with, I don't know, 30 million guaranteed. He got much less than that. So to see that and to see obviously not identical, but very similar figures given to JuJu Smith-Schuster, that it's very clear that the Patriots have chosen JuJu Smith-Schuster over Jakobi Meyers. And I think it's interesting because he's been around longer. He's a bigger name. You assume he's older. He's not. He certainly has higher highs. Granted, one time when the number one receiver was Antonio Brown, and another time when his quarterback was Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce was on the field. So those are factors to consider. But he's had lower lows, and it's an interesting juxtaposition on where you see both of those needles pointing in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, it is interesting. So Jakobi Meyers, 3 years, $33 million. I believe JuJu Smith-Schuster, Tom Pelissero tweeted out 3 years, $25.5 million. Meyers, I don't know. I mean, Meyers' total guarantees were kind of bogus. He only really got $11 million guaranteed, whereas Smith-Schuster, the current figure is $16 million guaranteed, but we're not sure what that's actually going to look like once the contract actually comes out. But I don't know.
Isn't that crazy? Like, not to interrupt you, but before you get going, just that the top free agents got not great deals. I mean, they weren't number one guys, and we know that. But still, just given there's money to be spent and there's cap space, you just assume someone would be like, whatever, give them 15.
Yeah, no, it is strange. I mean, I really did expect Jakobi Meyers to get, maybe not 20 million, but like kind of close to that, 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there, especially with a rising cap and everything like that. And just really did not come to fruition. This was a very weak wide receiver class overall, as we're seeing right now. But I don't know. I mean, I don't hate going from Jakobi Meyers to JuJu Smith-Schuster. Like, if anything, I think it might provide a little bit more upside in the offense just because he has had higher highs. It's a little bit of a risk because of the injury situations. But the thing that's kind of confusing to me about this, and I recently tweeted about this, is that JuJu Smith-Schuster has been available as a free agent now for 3 years straight. In 2021, I believe he signed for $8 million. In 2022, he signed for $3-ish million with heavy incentives, and he wound up making about, I think, $11 million. The Patriots don't sign him either one of those years when they could get him on these like low-risk one-year contracts. They wait for him to have a good season and then sign him to a longer-term deal, which is kind of similar to what happened with Nelson Aguilar, where he was available as a free agent in 2020. He signed for basically a veteran minimum deal, had a huge season, and the Patriots gave him a 2-year, $22 million contract. So I'm not loving the value here that the Patriots are giving to wide receivers, like coming off great seasons and then giving them a boatload of money, I think it could certainly work out better for JuJu Smith-Schuster than it did with Nelson Aguilar, but just feels like kind of a weird way to go about business.
Certainly, for an organization that was famously known for identifying sort of diamonds in the rough, identifying low cost, high value receivers anywhere. That was sort of their MO. They would get someone who was probably considered the 14th best at their position, and they'd end up being the fourth best, and they'd cost the 14th most.
Right.
So it's certainly a bit out of character, but I don't know. When they didn't sign Myers at that number, it was telling that they didn't want him. When they signed Juju at that number, it was even more telling that they didn't want Myers, which, okay. But the reason I think a lot of people around here didn't want Myers is because he's not a number one, and they
Right.
just had a bad offense, and he was their best guy. And he's been their best guy for 3 years, and they haven't been a good team. Got it.
Yep.
Smith-Schuster is a different person, and so I could see why people could say, all right, try that. But you're still in the same boat. You're still in the same spot.
Right.
Overall impact of your receiver wise, you're still manageable from a defensive standpoint, and this doesn't change that. It's different. I get it. Overall, if you look at the per game numbers, Smith-Schuster's better. If you look at the last 4 years, which excludes his monster 2018 season, they are a lot closer. I don't know. It's not a massive decision, I think, one way or the other, because it doesn't move you forward or backwards. It just makes things a little different. Actually, wait. I like to correct myself. It does move you a little backwards for the present, because Mac Jones had the rapport with
Right.
Jakobi Meyers, and beyond that, Devin McCourty had some interesting things to say. I was going to send you the audio, but I don't know the rules about playing radio audio
True.
on a podcast. It's like the Wild West. But on EEI, Devin McCourty was a guest and said you lose a lot in not just like the locker room, because he's not vocal, Jakobi Meyers, but a guy that coaches could point to and say, be like him.
Right.
An undrafted guy, earned everything, worked for everything, works on his weaknesses, works on his strength, is just a guy who puts his head down and does it the right way. I'm not saying JuJu Smith-Schuster isn't that guy, but he doesn't have anything like that established in that locker room with any of the coaches. So it's just something that you knew that you had in Myers that, you've seen receivers come here and not work out. So you don't know that you have it in Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I mean, yeah, there's just some inherent risk of Jakobi Meyers worked in this offense. He worked with Mac Jones. You knew what you had there. You could get 850 yards a season with him. And with JuJu Smith-Schuster, like, I don't know. Once again, like, I like this signing. If you're going to lose Jakobi Meyers, I think that JuJu Smith-Schuster was maybe one of the better options to bring in. And it seems like the price is not that high. If you're only talking about, $8.5 million, whatever it is, a year, that's not excessive by any means. That being said, like, last year, JuJu Smith-Schuster replaced, was part of a conglomerate of wide receivers that replaced Tyreek Hill. And he had a good season. He had a 960-something yard season, I think. But
And 933, 3 touchdowns.
he didn't replicate 2018. He wasn't a 1,000-yard receiver. He wasn't a 10-touchdown guy. And he was playing with the best quarterback in the world. And there wasn't, like, a tremendous amount of competition around him. It was Marquez Valdes-Scantling and McCole Hardman and Kadarius Toney, and obviously, Travis Kelce is going to eat up a lot of the targets and reps there and everything like that. But like, very easily could have had a 1,000-yard receiver season next to Travis Kelce, and it didn't happen. So now you downgrade from Patrick Mahomes to Mac Jones.
Well,
Maybe he's the number one target. It's a
Hot take.
That's a very hot take. I don't know. Like, maybe he's now the number one target. Maybe he gets 1,000 yards. Maybe he's significantly better than Jakobi Meyers. But I don't know. I almost feel like last year was starting to show like what the current ceiling of JuJu Smith-Schuster is.
Yeah, it's an interesting evaluation, and I don't want to make too big of a fuss over it, because I don't think it's necessarily an awful move to go from one to the other. I just
Right.
think what you just brought up is a fair question, and we don't know the answer. It's just clear that that's their choice. I think that's what we can say. I mean, sometimes we get too lost in the weeds. It's just like, well, what are they doing? Well, they're doing this. We can kind of see what they're thinking. I'm thinking maybe the yak aspect is significant
Yep.
because for as reliable as Jakobi Meyers was, and he wasn't exactly a guy who could flip the field. He wasn't exactly a guy who could get you that chunk play that maybe JuJu can more often. He had two 97-yard catches in his career. That's something
Right.
that, granted, those were a very long time ago. We were both young men when those happened. But there's different skill sets. I could see it, but right now we don't know, and we're just laying out that it could. I guess there's more risk in it than just bringing back Myers, because especially when bringing guys back seems to be their MO this offseason. It's like, oh, well, you were on the team last year. We
Right.
like you. You're a high character player. Come on back.
Yeah.
So for them to switch it up there is at least noteworthy.
Definitely. We have some late breaking news here.
Doug.
Jeremy Fowler of ESPN reports running back James Robinson to the Patriots for 2 years and a max value of $8 million per source. My reaction to this is okay. James Robinson. I think
Yeah.
that's probably the Damian Harris replacement.
Yes.
I'm assuming it's probably got to be about $1 million each year in incentives. So you're probably looking at more like a 2 year, $6 million deal. And year one might be kind of low, but I don't know. It's fun that they've signed a running back, but this one, to me personally, doesn't move the needle a whole lot.
Yeah. So the Robinson was traded to the Jets when Brees Hall got hurt, right?
Yes.
It never really did much. Am I right with the
No.
Jets? Let me see. I just brought it up here. 85 rush yards for four touch. Oh, first those are first downs. I'm sorry. Um, those were averages. I apologize, but yeah, 85 total rushing yards and two catches for 5 yards. So obviously didn't. That's a lot of money for a guy that was brought in for a specific purpose, but didn't really deliver with the Jets. He had a good rookie season in 2020.
He did.
And has gotten worse since then. That's interesting. Again, you want to get into value. And I did think we'd eventually get to Damian Harris retweeting some anti-Patriots propaganda,
Right.
which was a good signal that he was done here.
Yeah.
I liked the idea of Harris scouring the market, getting no takers because his value was really hurt last year, and returning to the Patriots because I think Damian Harris is a heck of a running back. In a traditional
Yep.
sense, he's not as maybe diverse or well-rounded as Ramondre Stevenson, but he's a good runner,
Yeah, he's a good running back.
and
Yeah.
he's probably going to be cheaper than James Robinson at $4 million a year. I think maybe not. I don't know, but
Right.
I guess that's another instance of change. Is it change for the sake of change? Is it change for improvement? I don't know. I would imagine Bill O'Brien has some say in this, and that's why some skill players are going to be different. We've seen
Right.
three skill position changes with JuJu Smith, Jakobi Meyers, and now we assume Damian Harris not being back.
Right. Yeah, because James Robinson does kind of, he's that early down type of back, not going to catch a whole lot of passes really. So probably spell Ramondre Stevenson on early downs, allow Ramondre Stevenson to maybe do a little bit more on third down and not get quite as tired this year. One last point on JuJu Smith-Schuster. And yeah, I mean, I reached out to someone and I was like, why Smith-Schuster over Myers? And the response was, yards after catch plus playmaking ability, but that they're actually pretty close as wide receivers. So, maybe that closeness is why they wanted to sign the guy for cheaper than the guy who's going to make a little bit more. And then you also get maybe a more dynamic player after the catch and for big playability. I don't know. I'm kind of caught off guard by this James Robinson news, but I'm not sure if I would have that much more to say about it if I had like a week to prepare for talking about James Robinson on the
Yeah.
Patriots. But
Yeah, I would say there's
yeah.
a trend in that the Patriots have now acquired two players who had really good seasons a while ago. Robinson's being more recent. In 2020, he had 1,400 yards from scrimmage and 10 touchdowns. He had 344 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns, in addition to 1,070 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns as a rookie in just 14 games. So his 2020 season was dynamite.
Yes.
The next year he played the same number of games. His yards from scrimmage dropped 420 some odd yards. And then last year, it was cut in half, 476 yards from scrimmage, 11 games. So it's a buy low player, but I don't know where that cost fits. It's not, debilitating to the cap or anything. But when you're making moves like trading JuJu Smith and taking a $12 million dead cap charge to free up $4 million, I don't know. $4 million does have a factor. There is something at play there. When you're cutting your punter and taking the dead cap charge, et cetera, et cetera,
Right.
you got to kind of look at the money and say, well, is it the most prudent spending we've ever seen? Possibly not, but it's, I guess, a hope that both Robinson and JuJu can rekindle whatever made them good a while ago.
Definitely. One other signing the Patriots made today was Riley Reif. He spent most of his career as a starting left tackle. Last season, he started like half the Bears games at right tackle. Jeff Howe said that this signing was made with the expectation that Reif would either be starting or like competing to start, something like that. I'm not so sure about that. I don't think
He's 34.
I don't think that's an ideal situation to have Trent Brown and Riley Reif as your starting tackles in the year 2023.
Yeah.
But they also signed Calvin Anderson. I think I would like the Anderson and Reif signings more, and I would be able to discuss them a little bit more if there was like a solid starter at either left or right tackle, depending on where Trent Brown is going to play. But I don't love the idea of Calvin Anderson or Riley Reif starting at either one of those positions in 2023.
What about both?
So Trent Brown gone, cap
Trade.
casualty, and then you got Calvin Anderson and Riley Reif starting. I don't know.
I've got Over the Cap up right now. Great
Yeah.
website. Helps me on a daily basis. So shout out to whoever runs Over the Cap. Jason at Over the Cap. That's right. Now, if the Patriots were to trade Trent Brown prior to June 1st, they would free up $11 million in cap space, and they would take on just a $1.25 million charge. If you can find a taker, that strikes me as a possibility. Now post June 1st, like say it's a training camp injury situation, same numbers. So
Right.
that seems like a possibility. You're not going to get anything for Trent Brown, but if someone needs a tackle, you now have. I don't know why I just traded Trent Brown, but
Right.
the way that they're stockpiling and the way that Trent Brown was not great last year, and the way that I don't know how he's going to take Adrian Clem's coaching, and I don't mean that in any sort of way. Like I just
Right.
don't know.
Yeah.
I do not know. He didn't take Matt Patricia's coaching very well, which right on.
Right.
Good for you. But I don't know. That's another possibility where maybe those two guys play. Maybe they draft a guy, and they have this sort of rotating cast because they still have they tendered Kajust to add to the mix as well, and
They signed Connor McDermott.
Thank God they
Thank
have
God.
Connor McDermott. We were both going there. I mean, it's only a matter of time before this podcast makes it to Connor McDermott commentary. But I mean, that's a lot of like, to use a baseball term, like quadruple A guys.
Right.
Well, not that Riley Reif is, but he's 34 and has had injury issues.
Okay. You might know this. Don't look it up. Last year, 2022. When do you think Riley Reif signed as a free agent?
August.
July 26th.
So basically August.
Like, that's not.
That was after.
Great.
So he was on the Bengals the prior year and got hurt around week 12.
Right.
So there was probably an injury and age, and now you're a year out of that. So I mean,
Not a year out of age, but you are a year out of injury.
A year out of the injury, a year older though. But yeah, I don't see. It seems like they're stockpiling, and when a team stockpiles depth, that might mean the number one guy on the depth chart is not for long. That's all.
I don't disagree with you. And the fact that, I mean, Trent Brown got like straight up benched last year, right?
It's hard to remember, but sure. Yeah, definitely. First reported by us, if not.
And like, the penalty issues and sack issues. Yeah, you don't know how he's going to perform with Adrian Clem, and you don't know how he fits into Bill O'Brien's offense. Like, I don't know if every single team in the NFL would want a 6'8", 380-pound left tackle.
Just The benching might be tough because he took 98.1% of the snaps, fewer than only Michael and Wenyu. So if it was a benching, it was probably like 2 series. So maybe it
Interesting.
was it like week 1 in Miami or
I
something?
really thought that he got benched at some point. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
I'm
it was
wrong.
brief. It was brief, if so.
Did he not start a game last year? Was there one game that he didn't start? We're just
Uh,
gonna like just bore everyone to friggin'
yes.
tears.
There was a game he didn't start.
There we go. I'm the smartest person
Oh,
in my
but then
dining
someone
room
got
right
hurt.
now.
Did someone get hurt? Let's see. Which game didn't he start? Doug, this is the Jets game, the 10-3 win at home.
Yep.
He only played 68% of the
Yep.
snaps.
I
And do you
knew.
want to know? Do you want to know who started that game, Doug?
At
Over on
left tackle,
at left tackle,
was it Yodnika just?
it was Yod. Well, he might have played right because
Hmm.
did he play left? Oh no, he might have played left. Yeah, but then he might have gotten hurt. This is a lot
Right.
of stuff that happened not very long ago where you and I are both.
But like there was also like illness stuff with Trent Brown last season where I think he
Yeah.
said that he like lost some weight and he was dealing with so like maybe that's why he got benched instead. But it did seem to kind of coincide with some poor play by Trent Brown, which I guess also could have been caused by some sort of illness. But all in all, let's just say like last year, not exactly a banner year for Trent Brown, right?
Yeah, and let's start. I mean, he had maybe an attitude issue in preseason when he was, said I'm ready to go home. All right, we figure out Isaiah Wynn got hurt in the Jets game, did not play after that. That is why Trent Brown's benching was very brief. We
Okay.
did it. We did it, Doug.
Yep. So
But
bench
yeah,
week, or yeah, didn't start week 11.
didn't
And actually wound
start.
up playing pretty well that game.
Yes, I definitely remember that because I remember everything else about this saga. But all right, that's a lot of tackle talk. What do you think? Think that's it for tackle talk?
I think we've probably tackled the tackles at this point.
Yeah, I mean they're fine. They're fine depth wise at tackle. We'll see if they draft a starter. I actually have a draft thought that came to mind this afternoon. I think they're going to draft a tight end, Doug.
Well, if
Like,
they don't sign one, they almost have to, right?
and there's from what you read, I'm not a draft nick. I'm not an expert, but I read what the experts have to say, and there's some tight end talent,
Yeah.
and not a premier position, not really somewhere you want to use the 14th overall pick, but nah,
Hunter Henry's a free agent after the season too.
that's what they say. There's, Matt Sokol and Scotty Washington on the roster. Not exactly stocked there if you want to talk depth. You might need a guy who could come in and play and be a part of your offense. We've mentioned Bill O'Brien likes the use of the tight end at times. So that's something that's a little thought I had today. Tight
I
end.
don't love the idea of drafting a tight end at 14. Like if this
Nope.
was in the second round, I'd probably like it a little bit more. But I will say that there's not a great like middle class tight end market. I think like Josh Oliver just signed for 3 years, 21 million, something like that. So like even the guys that would be like backups behind Hunter Henry are still probably going to make around like $7 million a year. I think you're actually better off having that backup tight end be a rookie. Maybe it's in the first round, maybe it's in the second round, who knows? But yeah, I think there could be something to that. I will say that the JuJu Smith-Schuster signing kind of dashes my hopes of a Jackson Smith and Jigba
Yeah.
pick it in the first round.
Yeah.
If they hadn't replaced that slot receiver position, because I think JuJu Smith-Schuster will probably wind up playing a lot in the slot, then I'd have a little bit more faith in that. But I still think there's a wide receiver for the Patriots to sign or add in the draft, but just not convinced it's going to be my guy JSN there in the first round.
Yeah, and you know what's going to happen, Doug, because the Patriots have had their issues drafting wide receivers. You might have heard
Yes.
about it in the news. All those guys, Zay Flowers, the USC guy whose name escapes me at the moment, all
Jordan
of those,
Addison.
yeah, all of the like shifty sort of slot receiver types are going to work out because the Patriots aren't going to draft them. It's
It's
just going to
true.
be one of those years.
Yeah.
But I looked it up too. It's been a while, but obviously they drafted Daniel Graham and Ben Watson in the first round, and that was at 21 for Graham and 32 for Watson, which is kind of like after 20 is when you want to take a guy who's not Kyle Pitts
Right.
type tight end. So maybe they'll trade down. Trade down, tight end, guard. Done. Draft over.
Yeah. I I think that could be the plan there. I wanted to talk about other guys the Patriots have brought back. You mentioned it earlier. They are basically just kind of like bringing everyone back. The only free agent they've lost is Jakobi Meyers at this point. They've re-signed Jonathan Jones, Jabril Peppers, Carl Davis, and then they tendered Miles Bryant and Yodny Kajust. We talked about Jones. We talked about Davis. I don't know if Miles Bryant and Yodny Kajust deserve much more, or deserve is harsh, like warrant much more talk.
Yeah.
But Jabril Peppers, like it was a not insignificant contract that he signed. I still don't think that they've got a free safety on their roster right now. I think that Kyle Duggar, Adrian Phillips, and Jabril Peppers are all better off playing strong safety. But he's going to have a role next year. I don't know what it's going to be, but he's going to have a role.
Yeah, and he played about a third of the defensive snaps last year. You got to imagine it'll go up, obviously, with McCourty leaving, obviously with a re-signing. They could have gotten someone different if they envisioned a different need for a different player. So, I mean, he was not noticeable for much of the year. I would say that you would notice him when he ran someone over like a Mack truck,
Right.
but it wasn't as if he was heavily involved in the defense. Now, can he be? Sure, he's played plenty of football in his career, but if it is the free safety role, I don't know that I love that. I love him, or I like him in that rotation with Phillips and Duggar as sort of your hybrid linebacker safeties who can lay the wood, who can shed blocks or at least absorb blocks and occupy space and just sort of be big, tough, badass, tough guys. Free safety is a different spot. I don't know that. I know he's done it before in Cleveland, but I don't know. Do you love that?
I don't love that. He's 5'11", 213 pounds, which is like, if you're looking at
Stumpy.
BMI, that's like essentially the BMI of like a linebacker.
I have a take on the BMI chart. I'm glad you brought that up. That is from like the 1200s when you couldn't like buy chicken at the store. Like according to the BMI chart, I've been morbidly obese my entire life, like since I was 15 years old. It's garbage. The BMI chart needs to be updated. Like that was before sustenance was easy to obtain.
I mean,
BMI chart.
I mean, yeah, I'm maybe using it in a slightly different way right now. I liked your rant. I thought it was warranted.
Thanks. Yeah.
I'm kind of looking at this from a pure football standpoint of like he's the bulk of a linebacker, or he's the bulk of like since he's 5'11", 213, he's probably the bulk of someone who's like 6'2", 225, maybe 230. I don't know. I'm not a BMI expert. But yeah, he's not like, that's not a free safety body, I think is what I would, that's where I would land on whatever the hell I'm trying to say right now.
Fair enough. Yeah, I would say without looking it up, because I'm double checking my numbers here because I don't want to be made to look like a fool. And it's a good thing I kept my mouth shut because I was going to say Adrian Phillips more looks like a more slender, smaller.
He's like 220, right?
He is 5'11", 210 according to Football Reference, which is just about the same. So I didn't say that.
Duggar, I think, is 215 or 220 as well. So yeah, these are Duggar's not small men.
He's also 37 years old. People forget. It's a true story.
Yeah. Well, if we're Jabril Peppers and Kyle Duggar might be like very close in age, actually. Jabril Peppers was drafted.
Oh, Jabril Peppers is 27. He was born October of 95. Duggar was born March of 96. So they are very close. They're what, 6 months apart? That's not a lot.
That is some wild stuff right there.
Peppers entered the league in 2017. Duggar was like a freshman at Lenoir-Rhyne.
Imagine telling someone in the year 2016 when Jabril Peppers was like, wasn't he like a Heisman finalist one year or something? First round pick, like playing offense and defense, all these things. And then like Kyle Duggar's probably sitting on the bench at Lenoir-Rhyne. Imagine telling Kyle Duggar at that point, like, you are going to start over Jabril Peppers in the NFL in a mere 5 years. He
was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year in 2016. I'm guessing that was his candidacy for the Heisman. He had quite a season there at Michigan his junior year.
Yes.
Before entering the league 7 years ago.
So yeah, I don't know. Like Peppers returning once again, not exactly moving the needle that much, but overall, if you look at this week, so they added JuJu Smith-Schuster, Calvin Anderson, Riley Reeve. They've got Jonathan Jones, Jabril Peppers, Carl Davis, Miles Bryant, and Yannick Kajus back, and they've lost Jakobi Meyers and Johnny Smith. After they lost Jakobi Meyers and Johnny Smith, and they had only just kind of re-signed guys, I was thinking, like, this team has not gotten better. I would say at this point, add in the tackles, and they're like kind of back to square one a little bit right now because there's not a lot of free agents they need to sign.
Personnel-wise, we do have to note the coaching aspect, which is pretty much the biggest change and most necessary change they could have made. So we can't overlook that, but we are personnel-based people.
Yes.
We are people. So, yeah, but we said it the other day. There's nothing they could have done this period to really change what they are, I don't think. Unless I'm missing something or somebody. I don't think there's like 3 moves they could have made to make them a 11 to 12 win team next year.
No, I think that like if they had traded for Jalen Ramsey, we'd be thinking a little bit more highly of this team.
What if they get Beckham?
Odell?
Yeah, senior. Or junior. Probably junior, I guess.
You know what?
What if they get Odell Beckham Jr.?
If they got Odell Beckham Sr.,
yeah,
I might feel a little bit better about it because then maybe upgrade the quarterback. I don't know. It's what happened. I know they didn't upgrade the quarterback with the most upstanding citizen, but
yeah. Well, remember he was like posting film clips of like Odell wide open deep. And he's like, hey, Baker's not looking at him. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, it's a difficult position, but all right.
Michael?
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest Odell Beckham Jr. guy at this point in my life.
I could see. I mean, what if it's Odell?
His last 1,000-yard season was in 2019.
Well, Doug, you're describing the perfect Patriot in 2023. He was good a while ago.
It is very true. And he so one of the funnier things that Aaron Rodgers said today, which I felt that his entire interview with Pat McAfee was like one of the more boring things I've seen in my life. But
it was the most self-indulgent performance I've ever seen.
While he was like trashing Diana Rusini, which was lame, Pat McAfee started being like, hey, but would you want this guy? Hey, but would you want that guy?
Yeah.
And when they got to Odell Beckham Jr., I didn't have the heart to tweet this. He said, who wouldn't want Odell on their team? And I'm thinking 32 NFL teams last year didn't want Odell Beckham Jr. on their team last year. So there's actually a lot of people who wouldn't want Odell on their team last year.
I don't think he could play last year. So that's mitigating circumstances.
He went on a tour.
Yeah, but he probably showed that he couldn't play. I feel like the reports out of this year's workout were a little different, but
where has Odell signed? I'm curious.
It has not resulted
right now
in contractual relationships being commenced. So you are still right, but I do imagine that's because he wants $20 million, where I don't know anyone who could come off a missed year with a torn ACL and demand $20 million at age 30.
The $20 million thing is like, did we talk about this on the last show?
Doug, you've got to learn one thing about me. I don't know what I say, what you say.
I'll keep this short if we did. Like, whenever I see a salary attached to Odell Beckham Jr., my mind explodes. Because I think the price to pay Odell Beckham Jr. is like $2 million a year. He did not play last year.
Yeah.
He was not that good in Cleveland or with the Rams. He wasn't great in 2020 with the Browns. He had a 1,000-yard season in 2019, but he wasn't one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Why would you give this human being who hasn't been good since, I don't know, 2017, whatever it's been, more than a little bit over the veteran minimum with some incentives attached? I do not understand it, and maybe that's why he hasn't signed somewhere yet.
Yeah. Yeah, great 2014 through 16 and sort of okay for a few years, and then obviously not playing last year. I'm with you, but sometimes he's probably not the same player. I do think there was so much with Odell Beckham during his burst onto the scene where it was whether it was stupid stuff like his hair or the punting net or things like that, that how game-changing he was sort of overlooked or discredited. He was that player, but you're right. That was a long time ago. I'm just reading the tea leaves, and you've got a running back who was good 3 years ago, and you've got a receiver who was good 5 and 6 years
What
ago.
about DJ Chark? He was good in like 2019, maybe 2018.
Yeah. I mean, it fits the mold. I don't know. But yeah, if you're paying a premium for it, it doesn't really make sense to do that. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying, what if they get that number one guy? I don't know who that may be. Maybe it's Quentin Johnston. Maybe he's good. Actually, we don't do.
Hopkins. I mean, Hopkins feels like
Yeah.
it's still out there. But I don't know if that vaults you into 10, 11. Oh,
It
goodness.
just
I
gets
don't
you.
know if
It
that
just
vaults you
comes
into
up
like
and
10, 11 wins.
it's like a bear trap with you. Like you're just walking along, and then it just boom, you're gone. We don't do question and answer and mailbag and stuff, but I did get a tweet tonight that we could bring up because it's relevant. This is from a fella. I'm not familiar with his work. Looks like he is possibly trolling, but let's
Uh-oh.
ask it anyway. Ben Belford Peltzman, welcome to the podcast. The Patriots don't need Hopkins or OBJ. Bring back the man, the myth, the legend, N'Keal Harry. Huh? What do you think?
Um,
Is he available? Can you get him?
I'd rather have Odell Beckham Jr. than N'Keal Harry.
Okay.
Not gonna
The
lie.
takes coming out of you tonight are a little bit spicy. I wasn't ready for him. So no N'Keal. No on N'Keal?
I'm gonna say no on N'Keal. I'm gonna say
All
no
right.
Keel.
Well, I'll vote yes because it's American Idol rules and you need a majority, and half is not majority. So let the record state. I voted yes, N'Keal.
Wow, you want
Yeah.
N'Keal Harry back? You think he's gonna flourish in the Bill O'Brien offense?
Yeah. Yeah. The man, the myth, the legend really just sold me. I was like, yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. It's all right.
All
So
right. You didn't like that one.
I no, it was good. It was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
We have gone through all of the moves that the Patriots have made. I don't know. Maybe they have something in their back pocket here. Maybe they wind up getting a cornerback. Like it doesn't feel like there's a lot of exciting players available at this point. Am I incorrect in saying that?
I don't think there were many
Right.
exciting players. There was like the Jordan Poyer possibility was exciting, but I think we have to reshape our minds too. When I mention things such as Odell Beckham, he wants to play for the Cowboys or somebody. He doesn't want to play for the Patriots. I think Calvin Johnson on his media rounds last
Right.
week, I think he was talking to Phil, and it was like, "Would you want to go to the Patriots?" He was like, "Honestly, no, not right now." And there's
Right.
good reason for that. And I don't know if we mentioned him or someone else, where it was, they said something sort of painting the Patriots as an undesirable location, and I believe you and I were both like, "Well, yeah, I mean that's pretty much on." So obviously, money talks, and the biggest contract is how you get guys that might not want to come here. But if the money's similar or comparable, and then you factor in, I don't know, income tax and things that adults and accountants deal with, I don't know how many people are looking at New England as that spot that they want to go to.
What do you think the offer from the Chiefs on Juju was?
Oh,
Like,
that was another interesting thing because
yeah,
Rappaport said his heart was in Kansas City. Do you know what else was in Kansas City?
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
So the money must have been significantly different.
That's what I'm thinking. Because like, if the Patriots were only offering 3 years, 25 and a half, which once again, I'm going to do some quick math here and say that's around 8.5, 8.75, something like that, $1 million a year.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of money, considering last year he made somewhere around like 10 or 11 million with incentives,
Yeah.
and he was like a good player there, won a Super Bowl, all those things. Like, it must have been, I don't know, it must have been like, what was their offer? Was their offer 3 to 324? Like, do you think that's enough to take the Patriots if it's 324 or
No, it must have been like
325.5?
1 and 12 or something, or 2 and 20 with
Right.
12 guaranteed. I don't know. It must have been similar if Myers got an offer, similarly different, where
Yeah.
not to just rely on Devin McCourty in his interview this morning, but he also talked about how when a team makes a ton of free agent moves, it can be scary because you just don't know how guys are going to fit into a new place, a new system, and all that. And that's why he said you'll see guys take less money if it's similar, if it's what they're worth, to stay somewhere
Right.
they know works and they like, and they have coaches and teammates and a system in place that they like, because moving is no guarantee. And he mentioned
Yeah.
JuJu Smith as an example.
Right.
And so I think there's reason to believe that if Myers got an offer, it was duty, and if Smith-Schuster got an offer in Kansas City, it was also duty. I've got to imagine
Yeah.
that's duty with a D, not a T.
I
Poo-poo.
would agree with that. When Myers signed, there was kind of a hubbub about like, all right, is Hunter Renfro available in trade at this point? Then when I looked at Hunter Renfro's contract, I think he'd be like 2 years, 22 million, something like that, if he got traded before a certain date, and it would be like 2 years, 19 million if he was traded after he got his roster bonus. I don't know. I mean, I kind of liked that Hunter Renfro contract when he signed it, but after last year, maybe I'm just like I don't know, a victim of the recent past. But I don't love the idea of Hunter Renfro at 2 years, 22 million or 2 years, 19 million. That seems a little bit high compared to what Myers and Schuster just signed.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, you also had the wrong Raider heading out because Hunter Renfro
Right, it
didn't have
was
his
Waller.
wedding plans
Right.
spoiled by McDaniels, which is quite the story.
Yes.
Quite the story. Did some numbers for us on the website. But yeah, I agree with you on the dollars there. I think there are. I don't know, Doug. It seems like that's a tough position to make a ton of money, but I thought this was the year where the slot guys were going to cash in. Then that's what's coming in the draft is all the quick slot guys,
Hmm.
and it's a tough way to live. You know, you want to be ideally, if any young kids are listening, you want to be 6'4", 220, great hands,
Yep.
great speed, great body control,
Yep.
great awareness,
Yep.
great route running,
Yep.
and then that's how you make the big bucks at wide receiver. You can't
Hmm.
do it inside anymore, I guess.
It's true. It's sad. Those poor undersized wide receivers. They're just not making the big bucks anymore. Looking at the free agent tight ends that are out there right now, you've got
Ooh.
Dalton Schultz, you've got Mike Gesicki, Austin Hooper, Mercedes Lewis, Robert Tunyon, Hayden Hurst. Although I feel like he didn't he sign somewhere today. I don't know. Irv Smith. I don't know. There's still some veteran tight ends out there, but I'm not sure. I don't know if you want to pay like veteran tight end money, but that is a need. Like if you could get
Yeah,
Irv Smith in here, he's willing to play 33% of snaps. Cool. I don't think like Dalton Schultz would make sense. I've always liked Robert Tunyon as a player, but I
he's
don't know. He
probably going to
might
the Jets if we're being honest. Just the way that whole thing's shaping up.
unless he's not in the inner circle with Aaron Rodgers. But I don't know. There's still some like there's still some decent veteran tight ends out there, which is interesting that that's kind of a resource in free agency that's been a little bit untapped so far.
Yeah, for sure. What's going on with that? Just not just tight ends, but receivers didn't sign until Myers, and even then, it's kind of slow. We've seen what Lazard, Smith-Schuster now. It's piecing along.
Yeah.
It's a odd free agency. Is it just because the talent isn't there? Is it because like what are teams holding back on? That's what I don't
Right.
understand because money flies around, and maybe we're overlooking the fact that defensive tackles made a lot of money and
Yeah.
offensive linemen made a
Yep.
lot of money. So maybe we are ignoring that. Our bad, but I don't know. It just seems like there's always dumb splash moves that make headlines and get people excited, and it seems like we're lacking them.
I think there's also an element where there's a decent amount of teams who have to sign quarterbacks to large contracts soon. And I know that that's not like a league wide trend or anything like that, but like just looking at it, the Dolphins are going to have to sign Tua to a long term contract soon. Chargers with Herbert, Bengals with Burrow, Eagles with Jalen Hurts. Like maybe they're just looking at their rosters and being like, maybe we don't need these high priced free agents. Maybe we need to save our money and pay for our quarterback somewhat soon. Because I think there's some other ones out there as well. And then there's also all the teams who are already paying their quarterback a lot and don't have a great cap situation. So I do think it's a little bit of both. I think it's not a great free agent class. There's a decent amount of teams that didn't have a whole lot of salary cap space this offseason. And that's what we're seeing. But the Patriots have a decent amount of cap space left, I believe. I haven't looked at Miguel Benzin's Twitter lately, but feels like they still have some room to make some moves here.
I got you. I got you with the Pats cap.
Yep.
You want the Pats cap?
Yeah.
It's looking like 28.112,
It's big.
668
That's
million.
a lot. That
Yeah.
can go a long way
Yeah,
if you want
I
to.
haven't read all of his disclaimers. He knows a lot more about the salary cap than I do.
Yes.
Sometimes certain things aren't accounted for, sometimes things are, but you get the general idea there that there's money to be spent. The cap will continue to rise, I assume, going forward. That tends to happen in the
Yeah.
post-COVID era. So I don't know, though. I thought tackle might be a position that they would target. Doesn't seem like that's
Splurge?
happening.
No. Well, I mean, they
Yeah.
targeted it, but not a big signing. Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. So I guess they're just going to save up and see what happens. That's a very exciting proposition.
We are running out of time here. I think that, since we've been doing multiple podcasts here because it's free agency, we don't need to go quite as long as usual. But do you have any parting thoughts or do you have any leftover thoughts to hit on before we go?
Quickly, and I put this in column form, which was fun, that provided the Jets and Packers figure out the Rodgers thing,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be amazing one way or the other because I don't think there's a middle ground. It's either going to be a Super Bowl contender
Right.
that's just tearing through the league and is like really impressive, or it's going to be a friggin' dumpster fire and he's going to suck and the New York media would be on his ass and he's going to be making $50 million and have that attitude and it's going to be spectacular to see. Either way, I think I will be massively entertained.
I agree. Did you watch Aaron Rodgers today?
For like a minute, and then I got in the car and I listened, and it was all during the part where he listed every front office employee of the Packers from 2005 through 2017,
Yeah.
and it was insufferable. It was just insufferable.
I just midway through it, I think some people got confused because I just tweeted out that the Patriots were talking to a top free agent wide receiver.
Was it JuJu?
It was JuJu.
Oh, look at that.
And I don't know why I didn't put the name out there. I thought it would be I didn't know if I was allowed to, but then other people did, and then after other people did, I was like, oh, maybe I should have just put the name out there. But I also feel like I got more traction on it by not putting the name, which maybe not the best journalistic standards, but I was like, this tweet did numbers.
Well,
I didn't
if you
put
need,
the name.
yeah, Dov. Dov has been unmasked. If you need any journalism tips, Dov will help you out. Dov is Dov. And that's another impact of the Pat's Chat podcast. We say, who is Dov? Boom. Ryan Glass-Steagall, New York Post is like,
It's true.
he was listening. He's like, I should write that up. So credit to us.
But
We
after
first-
I tweeted,
we first had it.
After I tweeted the thing about the wide receivers, midway through Aaron Rodgers, I just tweeted this is not for me. And I still sat on my chair in my office and sort of watched the whole thing as I was writing about some other things. I was just like, I don't know, this just stinks. It was also weird that he was like, I'm not going to make an announcement here. I'm not going to break any news.
And then he did.
And then he did. Then he said that he
Well, that
wants
was,
to
you know
play
what
for
that
the
is, Doug?
Jets.
That's like everyone's wrong and stupid. They don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
I had this decision days ago, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, but we didn't
You
know
win.
Aaron.
You win, Aaron. You win.
That was
I
the
just-
weirdest part to me, though. Why did he? Because I was ready to turn it off once he said that. I was like,
I know.
okay, we're not gonna hear
Yeah.
anything. Fuck this.
And when it was like, really, I knew that Tuesday, even if I didn't want to admit it to myself. It's like,
Right.
all right, this is, I don't get paid enough to listen to you go through every single thought you've ever had and every feeling you've ever had. So that is what could play into him dominating. I think spite and piss and vinegar could lead him to have one more great season. But also he's turning 40 in December. And Doug, go through the list. Tom Brady kind of skewed everyone's minds. Joe Montana, Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger,
Yeah.
not Drew Brees. He played a 41, pretty high level. Very, very rare. I mean, Brett Favre, Tom Brady, and Drew Brees are kind of the only ones to do it at 40.
Yeah.
Well, so there's the possibility that he's not nearly the quarterback that he used to be. And the reason to believe that a little bit more is I feel like his mobility was always a part of his greatness, not in a running sense, but in a moving and throwing on the run and throwing across his body. That's harder to do when you're 40. So
It's very true.
there's a possibility things blow up. He builds his specific team, and I don't know, but I think it could work too. And I'm not skilled enough to predict the future, but that is going to be fantastic for the AFC East. Could be bad news for the Patriots. Could be good news. We'll see. So there's my thought on Rodgers.
I said this on the aforementioned Off the Pike podcast with Brian Barrett, and I avoided getting canceled for saying this, which big for me. So,
First of all, you're canceled because you remember what you say on that podcast, but not this podcast.
It's very
Carry
true.
on.
Well, this was kind of so. we were talking about Lamar Jackson, and your comment about Aaron Rodgers' mobility, like made me think of this. When Lamar Jackson got the franchise tag, and every team came out and told a reporter that they didn't want Lamar Jackson,
Yeah.
obviously the first thought in everyone's mind is everyone is colluding against Lamar Jackson because they don't want anyone to sign guaranteed contracts. And that is certainly a possibility. Maybe that is in part what is going on. But as this was happening, someone texted me and was like, they made a good point. So I'm going to pass it off to them. I think I did this before too. They said that like, and I want to preface by saying like Lamar Jackson is a quarterback. He is a fantastic quarterback. He is one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the NFL. So I'm not in any way, shape, or form calling him a running back. But there is a certain age where you don't want to be paying running backs anymore because they break down and they are not as effective anymore.
That age is like 28.
Lamar Jackson runs more than basically any quarterback in NFL history. And the quarterbacks before him that ran a lot were guys like Michael Vick and Randall Cunningham, who either didn't last very long or were not effective for very long.
Cam Newton, throw him in the mix.
Cam Newton as well. So, like, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that teams in the NFL wouldn't want to give the guaranteed contract to Lamar Jackson and might rather give the guaranteed contract to Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes or a quarterback who is less reliant on his legs than Lamar Jackson, because we don't know what Lamar Jackson is going to look like when he's 32.
Yeah.
With Cam Newton, the wheels fell off very fast.
That was sad.
And Lamar Jackson is a better passer than Cam Newton was. So I think that Lamar Jackson can better, continue his career and have better longevity and everything like that. But if you don't want to pay a guy who runs as much as Lamar Jackson because he's a running back, maybe you also don't want to pay a guaranteed contract for a player who runs as much as he does, and his name is Lamar Jackson and he's a quarterback. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good point that someone else said to me.
And that is since the 17-game season came into play 2 years ago. He's played 12 games in 12 games. So there's real worry there. I don't think that's cancelable. I think that's just reasonable, which maybe it doesn't play on Twitter and doesn't play any of the outrage and all that. But I
love Lamar Jackson. I hope he gets a guaranteed contract.
Yeah, I root for the players in all instances. But in this case, I don't think it has to be. I think there is a general. I don't know if collusion is too strong a word. I don't think any owner wants to set the precedent of giving any player 150 guaranteed over 3 years. I would love for that to be the case for football players because firsthand, being up close and personal, the hell that they put their bodies through, the year-long, lifelong dedication of health, fitness, diet, all of that. It's a lot, and it's just to be treated like a cog in the wheel by owners. You mentioned running backs. Now I'm ranting, and all the protection of receivers and quarterbacks with their heads. Running backs have never gotten any of that. You'll see a stray flag for the lowering the helmet. Sometimes they'll get penalized themselves for lowering their helmet. But forever, the standard has been if a running back has 4 people holding him up and he's just like chum in the water, a linebacker or a safety could come over and just absolutely go human torpedo into his head, and there'd be no penalty, and the running back has to get up and play the next snap, or else he probably loses his job forever. So I always am in the side of the players, but I could see why this would not be the precedent buster.
I agree with that. All right, well, I think that will do it for us for now.
One last quick one. We have a quick one. Did you see Kevin Clark's video?
Of
Kirby
Smart.
So Kirby Smart at a coaching clinic said Nick Saban taught him that Bill Belichick, when assessing D linemen, I was getting excited there. When assessing D linemen, Bill Belichick likes to gauge the size of their ass. Reason being, linebackers love a D lineman with a big old ass that can swallow up blockers and free up lanes for linebackers. So just keep that in mind. We're gonna have to reevaluate the way we look at D linemen. If the all 22 end zone cam is
have the end zone
behind
cam.
the offense, we need both. We need the defense now because we've got to just size them up. We need to click the screen and image pixel measure and compare them. It's something we got to do.
It's very true. I watched that mere hours ago, and it was very funny. So, thank you to Kevin Clark for putting that out there. And yeah, it really makes you reassess all of your defensive line scouting for the Patriots throughout the years. And
Who has had the biggest ass on the Patriots D line?
it would probably be either like
Will Fork.
Will
But,
Fork,
like, he's a
Ron,
different-
Ron Brace, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it's not something that I've paid attention to.
Yeah, like Alan Branch strikes me as a big ass guy. He was huge.
He was just like
He was a massive man.
human being who's just like built different.
Yeah, not the same. Like you, if you were to walk into a room with him, you wouldn't be like, yeah, me and him are like.
Do you think that's what sold Belichick on like Malcolm Brown?
Maybe big butt guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Kyle Love, maybe.
This is your butt knowledge is extensive. So
Well, it's really
shout out to
more nose tackle knowledge than butt knowledge, but
you. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know
Silver
that that's
Salinga. I don't know.
wow. I don't know that it's unique.
Yeah.
I think people like a big bodied defensive tackle,
Right.
but it was worded very funny. Like Bill Belichick gauges butts.
Just staring at butts at the NFL scouting combine.
This has been Ass Chat Podcast. And you come back next week. We'll have a more specified list for you.
I have been sick for like a week at this point.
No, you've been sick since we started the podcast.
Well, I've been sick since we started the podcast, but like this one in particular, my wife and I are sick, and it will not go away. No, like we are funding the Dayquil company by ourselves alone because we're taking it like 6 times a day. I like bring it into our room. I'm like, here's our Dayquil, and then 6 hours later, it's like, here's our ibuprofen, and like I'm like, it's absurd how long we've been sick for.
I don't want to get in the way of you with the potential sponsorship with the Dayquil people who I'm sure are pursuing, but have you considered taking something else if that's not quite as effective as you need it to
Well, I
be?
mean, it's not something that like gets you healthy. It just makes you feel okay for 4 hours.
Do you know what I've done, Doug? And you
What?
can join the situation. I've been unable to breathe for like 6 months, so I decided neti pot. I went with the neti pot.
Oh, wow.
It is a life-altering experience.
Oh,
There's
wow.
no going back. Once you cross that line into neti pot land, like you are a neti potter. I don't know that it works, but boy, is it a trip. So maybe it'll help clear things up.
So is the neti pot to the nose what like the bidet is to the rear end?
No, it's not like well, yeah.
But like in a way that like once you go there, you can't reverse course.
Yeah, like if you were to walk into a room and someone was like, I've neti potted, and you'd be like, oh, I know, I get it. Like, yeah. It's like, and then what it is it's like it starts pouring in and you got a nice seal going.
Yeah.
And you're just waiting because like the levee is going to break.
Wow.
And you're just waiting, and then it's going, and you're just like, well,
Here we
I'm
go.
in it now. There's no backing out.
That's incredible.
Don't even know if it works, but try it. Join the club. But we could talk about it on the next Ask Chat podcast.
All right. Well, this has been it for the Ask Chat podcast. We will talk to you guys again soon. We'll see if the Patriots do something. For the sake of us, we hope they don't do something for like another 2 days or so that we don't have to like immediately record a podcast.
For the sake of you and your health. Like, we need you
Well, that
back.
too.
A few days of rest, perhaps, is needed.
Yes. But we will talk to you again soon. Give us reviews on podcast app, Spotify, wherever. And we will talk to you guys the next time the Patriots do something fun and cool. See you later, guys.